Welcome to our Weather Impact Report, where we take a look at the top weather stories here in Georgia and around the nation. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss. The United States has been rocked by 4 1-in-1,000-year rainfall events in less than a week. First, there was catastrophic flooding in Texas. Days later, Tropical Storm Chantal drenched parts of North Carolina, causing major flooding. Then on Tuesday, the rains fell hard over New Mexico, causing devastating and deadly flash flooding there. And in Chicago, that same day, 5 inches of rain fell in only 90 minutes, prompting multiple rescues. All those areas suffering intense deluges that are thought to have roughly a 1/10 of 1% chance of happening any given year. Here's the latest from Kerrville, Texas, as the search stretches into the second week.
This growing memorial behind me has been increasing day by day. Along this fence here in downtown Kerrville, you'll find flowers, messages, pictures of victims as well. You can just walk along here and really get a sense of the impact that these catastrophic floods have had on this community. 129 at least have been killed, 150 still missing. 140 of those people missing are just in Kerr County alone, and it's hard to really grasp that amount of people that have been impacted by this. And this is one of those places that you could go here in Kerrville to really put a face to all those numbers that we've been reporting on for the last week now. Sunday morning here, ground search operations have also been suspended because of the potential flooding risk here in Kerrville and other parts along the Guadalupe River as well here in central Texas. You know, earlier this morning, those volunteers were checking in a local stadium to make sure that they were registered with the city and then deployed to specific areas to assist with those search operations. Again, those search operations have now been suspended. In a statement, the Kerrville Police Department said in part, all search crews need to evacuate the river corridor until further notice. Any volunteer search parties in the Guadalupe River corridor need to heed this warning. The potential for a flash flood is high. That potential for flash flooding will remain throughout the afternoon here on Sunday. Governor Greg Abbott also called on Texans to monitor any updates and to also listen to local officials for any further information. In Kerrville, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
As the day goes on, we are now starting to hear from survivors who made it through the deadly floods. Our sister station in San Antonio is speaking to a father who tried his very best to save people at an RV park near the Hill Country.
20 years of celebrating at this park. Jorge and his son Manny witnessed tragedy this year. Jorge rushed to save people as floodwaters barreled in Friday.
It just turned into like a river tsunami real quick. There was no warning, there was no telling if the river was rising or not. It was just a wave that hit you.
Loud booms of thunder jolting Manny and his father Jorge awake in the night at the HTR RV park in Ingram on July 4th.
And as I opened the door to the RV, the water was flowing rapidly underneath the floor.
The waters were rising, and then Jorge heard a woman yelling, honking her horn.
And I could hear her yelling, get out, get out. And so as I was driving towards the exit to get my family, I started honking as much as I could. I got there. I told my son, get out. It's flooding. Get out.
Soon Jorge did the same, but within minutes they saw RVs
just floating like a box of matches.
Jorge was banging on doors and blaring his horn, trying to save lives. He, along with Manny and his fiance, made it up the hill.
Just went back to see if I could get people out. And I saw a whole bunch of people coming up on that driveway. And they were carrying children and stuff like that. And one lady just told me, sir, don't go back. It's real dangerous. Don't go back. There's a lot of people trapped down there. And I could just hear loud noises and stuff like that. And by that time, you couldn't do anything else.
Now those he saved sending a message of gratitude.
I didn't think it was going to flood to that level. Like I said, I love the people of Kerrville, Ingram, Hunt. Our hearts are with them, and we extend our love to them.
In Ingram, Meredith Haas, KENS 5.
Back here in Georgia, Savannah College of Art and Design senior is among the victims of the deadly flooding in Central Texas. According to our NBC station in Savannah, 21-year-old Joyce Badon was killed while visiting friends during a holiday. Her family confirmed her death as search efforts continue across the region. With many still missing and presumed dead, including a lawyer right here in Atlanta, Josephine Hardin worked at Puff Howell Bailey. According to a post from the law firm, Josephine and her mother, Allison, were in Texas when they were both swept away and killed during the July 4th holiday weekend. According to the law office, Hardin joined the firm after graduating in 2023 from Emory University School of Law. And as rescue efforts are still underway, we know that more than 400 local, state, and national first responders have jumped in to help with the catastrophic and widespread flooding. Volunteers have found all sorts of debris. On Sunday, the United Cajun Navy found an entire car, a full-size car, buried underneath debris. This is just one of the obstacles crews are facing as they try to bring closure to so many families. For many, last Friday's flood brought back many memories of an eerily similar tragedy when the Guadalupe swelled in 1987, killing 10 North Texas teenagers. Those victims, along with more than 30 others, were trying to escape a hill country summer camp when a wall of water washed over them. As a new tragedy unfolds, Allie Spilliard sat down with one of the survivors of the 1987 flood.
They hurried us up early that morning, maybe 6 or so, and said we needed to hurry up and get out of the camp, that there was some flooding in the area.
It's been 38 years and still Tara Chatham vividly remembers.
Our bus stalled out, and then the van that was behind us stalled out.
At 14 years old, she says she'd accepted death.
But all of a sudden, we were all holding hands, and a big wall of water just came and sent us all downriver.
On July 17, 1987, Chatham and her brother Scott were among the more than 40 students from Bulch Springs Christian Academy, forced to cling to trees in the swollen Guadalupe. Scott helped pull friends higher. Despite a battle with leukemia he'd soon lose, Chatham was swept further downstream.
I mean, it came so fast, though. The water was just rushing so fast.
10 students died that day. For years, Chatham did her best to bury the grief. On a cloudy day at the Bulch Springs Christian Academy, she says she has no memory of sitting down with NBC5 in 1988.
About when I was in the river and when I was going under and everything.
Then Friday, it all resurfaced as history repeated itself. Once again, summer camp children among the dead and missing.
All of the pictures of the running river and the trees and the helicopters saving, it brought up a lot of the emotions.
While many can't begin to imagine the grief felt by those left behind, Chatham's walked in their shoes.
This is Sergeant Seal, so he's the one that risked his life. And he got out on the skids of the helicopter, and he's a state trooper. And pulled me up by the hair of my head and my shorts.
Having survived her own nightmare, she urges those just beginning theirs to lean on their faith.
That we have hope that we will see them again, and God will be with us and, carry us through.
Well, 1987 was just one of many times that the Guadalupe River has swelled. The Associated Press is reporting FEMA removed dozens of buildings at Camp Mystic from their 100-year flood map as the camp expanded. According to the AP, records show the camp was included in a special flood hazard area in its National Flood Insurance Map of 2011. That means it is likely to be inundated during a 100-year flood. Records show FEMA removed 15 of the camp's buildings from the hazard area in response to an appeal in 2013. The buildings that were removed were part of the camp that was devastated by the flood. Another 15 buildings were removed from the designation between 2019 and 2020. Those buildings were located on a sister site that opened as part of an expansion and were less impacted by the flood. FEMA did note in the amendments that other parts of the camp were still in the flood map. In a statement, FEMA said flood maps are snapshots in time and are not predictions of where it will flood. Camp Mystic did not respond to the AP's request for comment. The camp lost 27 campers and counselors in the disaster. As crews search for at least an eighth day, hundreds of people gathered to mourn the growing losses from the devastating floods. President Trump toured Kerr County on Friday and says his administration is doing everything it can to help Texas.
All the beautiful souls, and we're filled with grief and devastation. The loss of life, and unfortunately, they're still looking.
The president also met with state and local officials, first responders, and families of the victims. The National Weather Service says it was adequately staffed before the Texas floods, and warning messages were sent out to residents. All of this comes as there are growing questions about the agency's staffing as a whole. Federal cuts have led to widespread staff reductions at the agency in just the past few months. Drew Wilder talked to the labor union representing employees about its concerns.
Tonight, the death toll has climbed to at least 90 people in central Texas as they brace for even more rain, days after flash floods devastated a flood-prone region. In the hours leading up to the deadly flooding, the National Weather Service issued warnings and alerts, but there are questions of whether those alerts could have reached the most vulnerable and whether staffing cuts and federal budget cuts affected the ability to potentially save more lives.
The staffing that we had in both San Angelo and San Antonio offices, we had adequate amount of staff to get out the alerts and warnings to the public. The flood warning was issued 12 hours in advance of the event.
Between buyouts and cuts, NWS lost about 600 people between the start of Trump's second term and April 30th.
That has a dramatic impact to staffing requirements across the country, which has left many forecast offices critically understaffed.
Tom Fahey is the legislative director for the labor union that represents NWS employees across the country. Fahey says the cuts have left NWS offices in Central Texas without critical positions that play a role in disaster preparedness and emergency response.
At the beginning of the administration, again, looking to trim the fat off the federal budget, looked at the budgets for the National Weather Service and deleted or suspended, rather, a better word, they suspended the funding for the warning coordination meteorologist.
This position works with local emergency management officials doing outreach, emergency response planning, and training exercises. But where Fahey says NWS has been hit the hardest is in the rank and file, the meteorologists who predict storms and their severity and then offer the public even more information. Despite what the union says, President Trump says his cuts did not leave critical vacancies at NWS.
They did. I'll tell you, if you look at that what a situation that all is, and that was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup, but I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe, and it's just so horrible to watch.
NWS says it issued alerts and warnings starting 12 hours before the event. But one of the counties most devastated by this flood does not have weather sirens. And even cell phone service and weather radio can be limited in these areas, especially during severe weather. But one thing is clear. The federal agency, whose employees have dedicated their lives to saving others, are understaffed and underfunded with even more rain on the way.
Well, you may be watching and wondering, how can I help? Our parent company, Tegna, has created the Texas Flood Relief Fund to support the communities impacted by the devastating flooding. Simply scan the QR code on your screen to donate. Every dollar you give goes directly to those in need. Texas wasn't the only place that dealt with serious flooding last week. Search and rescue efforts continued in New Mexico after historic flash floods swept through parts of the state. The videos are very shocking. One captures an entire home being swept down a river. At least 3 people were killed in a remote village. New Mexico's governor has now requested federal aid through an emergency declaration. The Durham Fire Department said 80 people were rescued by boat early Monday morning and overnight after the Inno River flooded due to Tropical Storm Chantal. Take a look at this video. This was around 2 a.m. Monday as crews used rafts to rescue people from their flooded apartments in Durham County. One resident said she saw water running on the floor in her home and initially thought something in the house had broken. But when she opened the door, she said water was coming in from everywhere. Several residents in the area were sleeping and had no idea the water was rising until the fire department beat down their doors. Officials said some people's homes flooded to chest level. Within a matter of hours, Tropical Depression Chantal dropped Inches of rain across the triangle, causing major destruction. Now, North Carolina climatologists are studying its course and say North Carolinians may need to watch out for more serious storms like it. WRAL's Heidi Kirk explains the changing weather patterns and how you can prepare for the next tropical storm.
It's a storm that rolled in over a holiday weekend, breaking dams, cresting rivers, and flooding roads, homes, and businesses. It's also the type of storm that climatologists say North Carolinians may need to watch out for.
I think what we've learned from Chantal is that no matter how strong a storm is, what its winds look like, even what it's classified as, we can see this threat of heavy rain anywhere in the state from any sort of tropical system.
Climatologist Corey Davis says tropical systems are changing. In North Carolina, we're seeing more with characteristics of severe thunderstorms, dropping excessive rain in unexpected places.
So what was so surprising with this storm is that not only did it end up bringing big rainfall totals, but those totals came very far inland, hundreds of miles away from the coast, where even in some of our big hurricanes, we haven't really seen amounts like that.
Now, in the past, you may not have paid too much attention to any of these tropical systems, but Davis said now you might want to, knowing the type of damage that they can cause. WRAL meteorologist Kat Campbell says we've already surpassed the number of damage reports in the Triangle from last year.
Last year, we had 568 reports of damage. This year, we're only just over halfway through the year, and we've already surpassed that number. We've had 574 reports of damage.
That's a trend that's being seen in other places. Just this week, Texas and New Mexico also recovering from damage caused by flooding. Chantal is just the latest to make its mark on our state.
Well, this time last year, several Vermont counties and communities were devastated by flooding. Now, much of the wreckage is gone, but signs of destruction, they still linger. Some residents left, while those who stayed still struggle with the trauma left behind. Sophia Thomas takes a look back at this historic day.
It started in their backyards, the normally calm Great Brook roaring past and into their homes. Lauren Geiger's basement was underwater.
And I could see the water like sloshing. It was kind of like being on a boat, you know, where you see everything kind of moving. And at that point, I knew that we had to leave immediately.
Surveying the damage in the daylight was disturbing. Mill Street Bridge destroyed by a blockade of trees and debris. An apartment building known as Heartbreak Hotel ripped open. Several homes and cars washed away.
I heard the rocks, the boulders rolling. They're bigger than Volkswagens rolling down the hill. It's this like really jarring kind of grating sound.
And there are some people here, looks like they've lost everything. And it's just really, it's overwhelmingly sad. It's overwhelmingly sad.
A year later, there's a temporary bridge and much of the wreckage is gone, but you can still see into someone's exposed kitchen, and a layer of sand coats porches and roads.
The lingering signs are everywhere. For example, I just pulled a length of hose out of the brook last week. You know, you're looking at the side of the building into what were people's homes and kitchens. It's pretty depressing.
Since the floods, Geiger says about half of her neighbors have left. 28 homes still await FEMA buyouts. She says those remaining struggle with trauma, herself included.
I was a lot more fearful in the first 4 to 5 months following the flood. I sort of had a kind of a panic response when it rained, and I would leave. I stayed at a hotel for 3 weeks last year. Now I'm more prepared for it. And I feel like I know exactly what I will do if it starts to look bad.
Metro Atlanta had a very small flooding threat on Thursday. The National Weather Service, they issued a flash flood warning for the city during a pop-up thunderstorm. Check out the rain coming down that night in Villa Rica. Sandra Caraway Harvey shared it with us on our Weather Impact Team Facebook group. The storms also brought down trees. This video from Deckner Avenue near Athens Avenue in South Atlanta. You can see branches from a giant tree that crashed into a home. This is another tree down on Windsor Street, right off I-20 near the FedEx Center. This photo is from Joel Carrick. Severe weather earlier in the week took the lives of 2 young men. We've been learning more about a tragic lightning strike that killed the 2 teens in South Georgia. One of them had just graduated from Ware County High School 2 months ago. Randall Martin's family says he was outgoing, passionate about playing the drums, and he loved to fish. They tell us he died doing what he loved on a fishing trip with a close friend, Joey Nelson, when lightning struck near their vehicle in Ware County. Loved ones are now leaning on faith in each other, remembering the joy Randall brought to everyone around him.
Humanly, we are hurting, but spiritually, we rejoice. Because the Word of God says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And we are hurting, but we're going to heal. But we are carrying yesterday in our hearts, and we are carrying that every time a lightning flash. We just think that's Randall's picture up there smiling down at us.
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation is leading the case and plans to release more information after autopsies are completed early next week. The National Weather Service saying with the 2 deaths near Waycross, documented lightning deaths in the U.S. since 2006 have reached 500. The National Weather Service also sharing the top activities that contributed to lightning deaths. Here are the top 3: fishing, going to the beach, and boating. The National Weather Service says the safest place to be during a lightning storm is inside a sturdy building. If you can't get indoors, being inside a car is a safe alternative. Avoid trees and stay away from water.
If you're actually out on the water, it's a very vulnerable spot because you are the highest point typically out in the water. So the best thing you can do is get low in the boat. And if you're in a metal boat, try not to touch, the frame. And if you're not, just try not to touch anything metal, but just getting as low as you can, is really all you can do if you're just caught that quickly.
Well, we are still learning so much about the tragic floods in Texas this week. So many have heavy hearts as a natural disaster has claimed hundreds of lives in such a short amount of time. Several serious floods have shaken the United States this week. Take this time and talk to your family about what you would do at a time like this. With your Weather Impact Report, I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss.